Sports in this May 25th, 2023 episode. I appreciate you joining us here. We got a lot going on right now. SEC tournament, third game of the day in the middle of it right now. I was watching it before the show kicked off. When we were logging out, getting in, ready for the show. 5-3 right now, top of the eighth, Arkansas. Remember, Paul Skeens pitched today for LSU, so this would be one of his. Arkansas beat him early in the year. So it'll be interesting to see, can Arkansas pull it through? I will update you through the episode of how that is going. But also, like I said, we're in the middle of the SEC baseball tournament. I will recap that, get you caught up to date. In other news, though, one team in particular, we'll get into it, in college basketball in the SEC, received some unfortunate news on Monday night. We'll talk about that. It was after the show. I talked about it a little bit, but we got some surprising news. Could really hurt a potential SEC team here down the road as we head into the 2023 basketball season. We'll discuss that. And then last episode, first live show, I gave you the first loss for every SEC team heading into the season. Some people probably pissed at me, telling me why I'm dumb, why I'm stupid, like for example, I picked Mississippi State to give LSU their first loss. Maybe crazy. I just like where it sets up on the schedule. Today, we're going to split it up a little bit by division. SEC West. To next week, I'll give you the SEC East, but the SEC West for tonight, I'm going to give you the best case scenario for each team and the worst case scenario for every SEC West team. We'll get to that as well. And then also talked about, we tried to get Michael Lombardi, former NFL GM, 3-time Super Bowl winning executive with the Patriots, with the 49ers, with the Raiders. We actually got him on last night. I recorded it. I will post that next week for next Tuesday's episode. Unfortunately, we will not have a live episode next Monday due to Memorial Day, but I will post that on Tuesday, the live episode or the recorded episode of me and Michael Lombardi. He was supposed to get on on Monday, but some stuff came up, but we still got that done. A fun episode, talk about team culture, talk about horizontal, vertical boards, how often the boards really move that much as we get into late March, early in April when the NFL draft comes around. Just a lot of good stories. The guy works with Hall of Fame Bill Walsh, Bill Belichick, Al Davis, or seen it all, different lenses of everything from an ownership, wore a bunch of different hats. Real good interview. I will get that out to you next week as your Memorial Day present from Mock 10 Sports. You can thank me later. But as you know, we always start the show with some, especially this time of year, with some transfer portal college football, transfer portal college basketball news. Unfortunately, there's really just not a lot going on right now in college football from a portal standpoint. So there's really not a lot of news. Maybe some next week. Again, we'll always update you. Follow us on social media. You'll see me retweeting it, liking it, all the good stuff. But first, college basketball. Like I mentioned, Monday night, Alabama got some tough news in regards to not really the portal, but staying in the NBA draft. Charles Bediako, the 5-man, the center for Alabama, who improved tremendously in his sophomore campaign, Canada native, decides he haven't heard it specifically from him, but some sources have said that he plans on staying in the NBA draft, which comes as a shock to a lot of people that follow the program closely in SEC basketball, and it really puts Alabama in a hole. Auburn is kind of the guy. Auburn is kind of the guy right now, or the team right now, kind of in the Julian Phillips sweepstakes. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But from other teams right now, besides outside Alabama, other decisions we got is Oscar Tshiebwe from Kentucky. We got Antonio Reeves from Kentucky. Still got to go. Kobe Brown from Missouri. He's got to announce if he's coming back or not. Jordan Walsh and Devo Davis, both from Arkansas. Just some guys to keep an eye on. Still with just some decisions to make. Are they going to still test the NBA draft waters? They have till May 31st. So next Wednesday, those are some names to keep an eye on from the SEC. I'll keep you updated on those. And then from another standpoint, LSU received a commitment from Kentucky power forward Damian Collins. LSU was active early in the portal. Matt McMahon and them got a lot of guys. They got the Vanderbilt transfer. They got some other guys that came in. They were very active, and they kind of polished it off a little cherry on top to give them some depth in their front court. And Damian Collins. Collins was his second season at Kentucky, averaged less than 8 minutes. So I don't really know if he's going to be starter numbers, but he should be in that 7-8 number. LSU should be better next year. Matt McMahon, at the very least, as bad as they were this last year, is trying to fix it this year through the portal. As we've seen in basketball, you can fix it in 1 year. You can easily fix it in 1 year. But remember, the key date, May 31st. But time to move on to the SEC tournament. Let me share my screen for you real fast so I can get you that bracket up. All right, so this is where we stand right now. Last time I talked to you, we were going in the first day. As you can see, South Carolina advanced, beating Georgia. Tennessee was eliminated. They were in host contention. They're no longer. A&M had some work to do to probably feel real good next Monday heading to the tournament. They've also won today. So A&M is in. Alabama got a big win against Kentucky. I think that actually solidified their host conversation. Auburn, I think, got a win against Missouri. I think Auburn was in heading into the SEC tournament, but I think that solidified their spot as well. LSU advanced yesterday, so that's where they're at today. They're playing right now. Arkansas walked off. We had back-to-back games that were walk. Arkansas walked off A&M yesterday. Alabama scored 3 runs in the top of the 11th. Florida matched it within 4 batters. Walk-off home run. Florida beat Alabama in the second round. And then Auburn took a loss to Vanderbilt. Today's action gets you caught up. A&M got a 5-0 win over South Carolina. South Carolina, I think, is going to be on the outside looking in from a host conversation. We'll talk big picture NCAA tournament picture right after I go through this bracket. Alabama held off Auburn at the very end, 7-4. I think Alabama and Auburn will both be hosting regionals in the Yellowhammer State. Alabama and Auburn, two of the hotter teams in the country, did a really good job. Right now, top of the 8th, probably a little deeper right now, but Arkansas had a 5-2 lead on LSU. We discussed that a little bit. And then 30 minutes after the game going on right now, we have the winners of Vanderbilt, or we have Vanderbilt versus Florida. So the top 4 seeds playing the nightcap for us. Tournament's moving a little faster now. If you're familiar with watching the SEC tournament, you'll know, we may have just been starting the LSU-Arkansas game. But instead, we got a lot of games starting on time. It is what it is. I hear people saying they want to move the tournament. I think that's ridiculous. The city of Hoover, Alabama, that stadium does a great job. We have extra inning games is why they started so late yesterday. It really wasn't the weather. Yes, the weather, it's late May in the South. There's going to be random thunderstorms. And I know if we moved it to Globe Life in Arlington or Minute Maid in Houston, rain delays would be taken out. I get that. But also, it's the summertime. The SEC tournament's had it for years here. I think since 96, 97. The city embraces it. Just keep it in Hoover until we really have to start making moves. Just keep it in there. And I think it is through 2025. So this is just some of the media people that I really feel like they don't attend it or their team's not in it very often. So I saw a little bit of that, but I think they keep it. But in regards to the rest of the tournament, A&M advanced into an elimination game tomorrow at 4 o'clock. They will face the loser of this LSU-Arkansas game. Alabama advanced out of loser's bracket. They'll play tomorrow night as well, right about 30, 45 minutes after the A&M and the loser of the LSU-Arkansas game. Alabama will face the loser of Vanderbilt, Florida. And then we have just those 2 games tomorrow. Then Saturday we get to 2 games. Remember, it's not double elimination once you get to Saturday anymore, which I think is good. It saves pitching. And then obviously Sunday, we'll get to the 3 p.m. Eastern time championship game on Sunday. So after tonight, we'll have 6 teams left. It would be Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Florida for sure. Whoever wins LSU, Arkansas, will have a day off tomorrow. Same with Vanderbilt, Florida. So we're sitting pretty well right now. Big picture, though. Big picture from an SEC standpoint. Big picture from an SEC, from an NCAA tournament standpoint from baseball. I think we're going to have 7. I think we have 7 hosts right now. Right now, looking at Florida, as of today, D1 baseball. Kendall Rogers, who runs D1 baseball, put off going into this morning. He put off his where everything stands right now. We got Florida's the number 2 overall seed. Arkansas, the number 3 overall seed, LSU, the number 4 overall seed, Vanderbilt, the number 7 overall seed. So those 4 teams, Florida, Arkansas, LSU, Vandy, will be national seeds, top 8 seeds. They'll host a regional, and then if they were to advance to the regional, they'd host super regionals. And then the other 3 teams, I believe, that are going to host, and Kendall Rogers agrees too, he's got Auburn heading into the day, the number 10 seed, Alabama, the number 11 overall seed, and Kentucky, the number 12 seed. With Alabama beating Auburn today, I think Alabama and Auburn maybe a swap spots there, maybe switched. So I think we have 7 hosts and all. Other than that, he's got South Carolina heading into the day as number 2 seed. With them losing, I don't really think that changes. I'd probably look for Arkansas. South Carolina probably get sent somewhere like Myrtle Beach, maybe to the Coastal Carolina Regional. The other seed, Tennessee, had a shot going into the week. Don't think they do as much anymore. Tennessee is a number 2 seed. They'll get sent somewhere. Then finally, Texas A&M. I think they worked their way in from a 3 seed to a 2 seed this week. Remember, they're still in the tournament. They'll face the loser of this LSU-Arkansas game as we stand right now. And I actually want to look that up, or just to give you an updated score. Let's see what the updated score of this LSU Arkansas game is right now as we head in. Top of the 9th, 5-3. So LSU should be up to bat right now. I'll keep you updated on any of those finals as we get closer into it. 5-3 right now. Arkansas. Remember, Arkansas, if they win, they don't play tomorrow. They're advancing to Saturday. Only have to be beaten once. If loser of this, if it happens to be LSU, Arkansas wraps this up, they will play Texas A&M at a 4 p.m. Eastern time first pitch tomorrow. Remember, just 2 games tomorrow as we head in. I think we can get 10 teams overall in the postseason. Georgia was really the only one who had another chance. I think Missouri had to win it, but I think we're going to have 10 overall teams in, 7 hosts. We'll find out for sure on Monday. I mean, the final show, the selection show, if you're not familiar with it, I'd have to look at it, probably about 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN on Memorial Day. It'll be Monday. They'll reveal, and on Sunday they'll announce the 16 host sites. And I'll launch all that from our social media. So if you want to keep up with it on Sunday, who the 16 host sites are, just follow Mock 10 Sports, and then on Monday as well, follow Mock 10 Sports for all regional pairings, regional announcements. As that is, we will not have a show on Monday. Our next one will be that Thursday. I'll break down all the regional action, stuff like that. We'll also talk about the SEC East from a best case, worst case scenario from that standpoint. And speaking of that, best case, worst case scenario, it is time, the SEC West, to head to best case, worst case scenario. Leading off, we're going in alphabetical order. Alabama, obviously best case scenario in my opinion here, 12-0. Alabama, obviously, we all know, has enough talent to go 12-0. Factor in 3 or 4 of all their bigger games are at home. Since Nick Saban's been in Alabama, they've only lost 5 home games, and it's always been at some exceptional quarterback play or Heisman Trophy. Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel, Ole Miss that year, Chad Kelly had a hell of a game. Joe Burrow in 19. It's always a miraculous. Got to have a big quarterback's got to play the game of his life, play his best game in Bryant Denny to win that. I think that benefits Alabama having their better games. I think Alabama's going to bring a little bit more physical mentality to this defense. I think this defense is going to be tremendously improved potentially. If this is best case, remember, I'm talking best case. This is what would have to happen. Then I think they have options at quarterback. Do they know who it is? No, but I think they have options between Buckner, Jalen Milroe, and Ty Simpson. Best case scenario, all that has to happen. They got to improve takeaways on defense as well. And I'll get to that worst case scenario. But 12-0, I think Alabama finds a quarterback, defense is improved, and their schedule shakes out. I think that's best case scenario. Worst case, I'll go 9-3. Significant injuries to the secondary, defensive line, offensive line would really jeopardize the season. No one really steps up at the quarterback position. I mean, it's one of those classic. If you have 3 or you have 2, do you really have one? Not enough explosive plays. That's got to get up. And then finally, I think the big thing is the defensive takeaways. Alabama finished 105th in the country in defensive takeaways. They need to get that up. If Alabama were to finish 9-3, it would be due to injuries and the defense not really improving, and probably the quarterback not stepping up to where it is. Probably somewhere in the middle. I mean, Nick Saban only had 2 undefeated teams, so probably somewhere in the middle. But I do think I lean a little bit more towards the best case scenario, but that's it. I think Alabama's best case scenario is 12-0, worst case scenario 9-3. Moving to Arkansas, best case scenario to me here is 10-2 for the Razorbacks. KJ Jefferson would have to to be 10-2, would have to really take that next step. Kind of have a little bit of Jalen Hurts. I know he didn't start that year with Danny Enos as OC because Tua was in front of him, but you could see he was improved as a passer. Danny Enos can do that. Last year at Miami, I don't know. Tyler Van Dyke didn't really take that next step. KJ Jefferson potentially could. The defense, I mean, they'd have to find somebody, be an overall, probably by committee. They're not going to replace Drew Sanders. That was their best player on defense last year, got drafted in the second round, the Alabama transfer. They're not going to replace him, but they'd have to do it by committee. Defense would have to be tremendously improved. Injuries have to be limited. They would have to sell their soul injury-wise to get to 10-2 next year, I believe. And then with all that being said, it's not that crazy to say Arkansas was probably in the third best spot right now. I don't know if I really believe that. We still got the whole summer to go. But right now, I mean, there's never been a time in sports where you have to have a good quarterback. KJ Jefferson's currently in that. It'll be interesting with that shift from Kendall Briles last year in the spread to go into really what Dan Enos wants to do. He puts a lot on those quarterbacks. They get Missouri at home. There was a year to go to the Swamp. They get Missouri out of the East, and they go to the Swamp, Florida. I think it's this year. As I talk on the show all the time, I'm not a big Florida fan. They have a lot of question marks, in my opinion. There was a year to go to the Swamp. It's this year. It's positive. The East draw for Arkansas isn't terrible. Like I said, will it happen 10-2 best case for the Hogs? Probably not, but I think that's best case. Moving to worst case, glass half empty mindset here. KJ Jefferson and Dan Enos just don't mesh. I mean, for everything I've talked to, people that have worked with Dan Enos before, puts a lot on these quarterbacks' plate. Can KJ Jefferson comprehend that? He hadn't been in this system last year, probably before he declares for the draft. How is this marriage? It'll be interesting. If worst case 5-7 is what I think. I should have said that 5-7. I mean, that would be the first step in the wrong direction to go 5-7 right there. I mean, or in the right direction to go 5-7. If that's worst cases, Dan Enos and KJ Jefferson just aren't on the same page. That would make complete sense. No number one true receiver steps up. Jaden Hazelwood's done. They really need a guy like Isaiah Satigna, who's actually from Fayetteville, Blazer, and they need somebody to step up on the outside. It's not a sure thing yet. But the defense never finds a true pass rusher. Like I said, they don't replace Drew Sanders. Remember, they got two new coordinators, and Travis Williams and then the co-DC Marcus Woodson. Travis Williams coming over from UCF, first time as a DC at UCF, and then Marcus Woodson coming over from Florida State. And that leads me to the next point. Will they get out schemed a little bit? Both these two new coordinators, co-coordinators, and Travis Williams and Marcus Woodson's first time being coordinators in the SEC. Got to be a little organized. You got to be able to adjust. Not before you get to the half, in the middle of the first quarter, middle of the second quarter. You got to be able to – I think that's not going to Alabama, but I think that's what made Alabama struggle so much on defense last year. They could adjust once they got to halftime. If you go back and watch the Tennessee game last year, they adjusted at halftime. They got torched in the first half, but you just got to make adjustments. The great coordinators make adjustments in the middle of the quarters, not waiting until halftime. I think Arkansas could potentially struggle there, and it's a worst-case scenario at 5-7. That's probably happening. And then finally, injuries. So we saw in their secondary last year, dude, they just didn't have the depth. If they get any significant injury bug, especially on defense, Arkansas could really be in trouble. But again, the best case scenario for the Hogs, 5-10. Worst case scenario for the Hogs, 5-7. Moving on to the Auburn Tigers, Hugh Freeze's first year. Best case, I think, for the Auburn Tigers, 9-3. I mean, Robbie Ashford or Northwestern transfer quarterback Peyton Thorne really developed through Hugh Freeze's system, and that wouldn't be shocking. I mean, Hugh Freeze really had a bad quarterback. The system's pretty simplistic, but he's always played to his quarterback's strengths. I mean, you're going back to Bo Wallace, who some give crap about, but was a solid college quarterback. Bo Wallace, Chad Kelly, Malik Willis at Liberty. Ryan Appling at Arkansas State, he was there. But again, proving my point, Quinshon Judkins, the best running back in the country, best running back in the SEC. He's back. Michael Trigg, who was out last year towards the end of tight end, and then they took a Memphis tight end I liked for Ole Miss. Transfer Caden Prescorn, I liked him. If they can become primary targets, because Ole Miss has to find a number one receiver on the outside. And then the Tulane game to me. Some people talk about how hard the schedule is, and it is because they draw Georgia out of these. But the Tulane game really doesn't scare me that much. So a lot of people, I know they got Pratt back, Michael Pratt, but they lost a lot of other stuff off that Cotton Bowl winning team. And then Pete Golden, new DC, coming from Tuscaloosa. I think he brings a four-man front that's really going to benefit guys like Cedric Johnson, Jared Ivey, and J.J. Piguez. I think it's really going to benefit those guys, the four-down unit compared to what they had last year with Partridge. I think that's best case for Ole Miss. And again, of course, injuries got to stay there. Worst case, may get some help for this, but I think 4-8. 4-8, you're so portal active. If things just go the wrong way like it did last year, you lose in 4 of your last 5. It's a very individualistic society when you live in the transfer portal. I mean, it really, just like Auburn, things go south. They took 18. I mean, it's funny. I got both these teams back to back, Auburn and Ole Miss, 2 transfer portal heavy programs. Things start going south. people start looking to the left, to the right, it's not what it used to be. You didn't have the summer conditioning programs or all these guys just living together for 3-4 years. You don't have the camaraderie when, the lack of a better term, the shit hits the fan, and someone's got to pull the roster together. Someone's got to pull it together. Like, hey, guys, we're going to go get this done, because every team, no matter if they're winning or losing, you go through some kind of adversity. I mean, you're bringing a bunch of individual mercenaries who are really just kind of out for themselves. It's tough to do that. But so worst case, again, no wide receiver. I think 4-8, no wide receiver steps up. Michael Trigg and Prescorn just really don't develop like I think they could. The defense doesn't take the necessary step. Now, granted, I think they're going to be a little better just because Pete Golden gets a bad rap, but I think he will improve this Ole Miss defense. Than any kind of injuries to the defensive line and secondary. Ole Miss has tried to improve it. They've taken some defensive line guys here to develop some depth. I don't really think any of them are real dudes, but they're trying to get depth. As you know, to survive this league, you got to have depth on the defensive line. And you got to be lucky with the injuries on the foot, because everybody's looking for offensive line and defensive linemen. And once you get thin there, there's a lot of things you can take advantage there. And then just the biggest negatives heading into 23 is just the overall, like I said, the schedule. Schedule is going to be tough for the Rebs. Drawing Georgia late in the year out of the East, that's tough. They do get Vandy at home. But like I said, the Rebs schedule is a little tough this year. But again, best case scenario for the Rebs, I think 9-3. Worst case scenario for Ole Miss is 4-8. Heading across the state to Starkville, Mississippi State, one of the more interesting teams, not only in the Southeastern Conference, but in the country, in my opinion. Former DC, new head coach, young cat, Zach Arnett. It'll be his first time being a head coach here. There's a lot of adjustment there. I think best case scenario for the Bulldogs first year, I think Mississippi State fans will be fired up for this, 8-4. To me, that means Will Rogers continues to impress in the SEC, and he's changing systems, because remember, they brought the former Appalachian State OC, Kevin Barbay's transition into somewhat seamless. Expect a lot of pistol formations here, just throwing that in for Mississippi State heading in there. They need some playmakers to step up on the outside. They really do. They need some playmakers on the outside at receiver to step up. If they do, I think State can take a next step. They have tight ends transferring in, which I like. Rylan Goday from Georgia, and they got the Jorquavius Spivey from TCU coming in. I think with this system, you're going to see Mississippi State using the tight ends a lot. With Mike Leach, I don't even think they had a position room for the tight ends, but now they will. It's going to look totally different with the Barbay offense here at Mississippi State. And then I think finally you're going to have guys on the interior of the defensive line like Nathan Pickering and Jalen Crumity. We're going to have to take massive steps and be disruptive of the interior to get to 8-4. Worst case, 5-7. First-time head coach. I don't have to tell people out there. It's a lot of adjustments. One thing to scheme, call the defense on Saturday, just recruit the defensive players. Now you're going to do interviews, go to these coaches shows on Tuesday, Wednesday in the season. You're talking to the offense. You got to recruit offensive guys. It's a lot. It's a lot first year, even when you've been a head coach and you're transitioning to a new program. I know he's an internal bump, and Arnett did a good job last year winning the bowl game, handling all that unfortunate situation with the Mike Leach passing. But again, it's a first time. You don't know how to be a head coach until you get that opportunity. So there could be a massive learning curve there, obviously, for Zach Arnett. The secondary lost 4 starters and their best player, Emmanuel Forbes, who should have won the Jim Thorpe last year, led the country in interceptions last year. He's going to be hard to replace. They also lose Tyrus Wheat. If they can't replace who's a pass rusher, they're going to be in trouble. And then if Will Rogers, the obvious one, if he just doesn't adapt to the Barbay system, going back to his high school days at Brandon High School right outside Jackson, Mississippi, he was in a spread offense. I don't have to tell you, he was in a spread offense at Mike Leach. This is new for him. Would not be totally shocking. But that's why I say best case scenario for the Mississippi State Bulldogs is Zach Arnett in his first year. 8-4, worst case, 5-7. I feel pretty good about that either way. Moving to Baton Rouge, the defending SEC West champs. LSU, I think best case, it's just like Alabama, 12-0. The talent's there, very similar to Alabama, like I said. But the difference here is they have their quarterback situation figured out. And I'll be honest with you, even if Jaden Daniels go down, they can win with Garrett Nussmeier. Kid loves LSU. I think he's ready to take over heading into the 24 season. But don't be shocked if he has to play a little bit. And if Jaden Daniels, for whatever reason, went down, if I'm Brian Kelly, I feel real. And Mike Denbrock, the OC at LSU, I feel fine with Garrett Nussmeier playing. Feel fine. He's been in the system for a year. LSU's fine at quarterback. Both coordinators and quarterbacks are back for LSU. That's what makes me feel good about the Tigers. I mean, percentage-wise, usually you have a good chance to win a lot of games if you got your returning quarterback and both coordinators. It's a whole nother year in the system. I don't have to tell you guys. Y'all know that. You know that, you Tiger fans out there. Offensive line, I think it's only going to improve. You started 2 true freshmen last year at left tackles. Well, they're back. They're sophomores now. They're a year older. They were early enrollees last year. Guys like Will Campbell, Embry Jones, and then interior guy, guard Garrett Dellinger. Feels like he's been there since I was in college. But they're going to continue to take that next step. If Mason Smith and Makai Wingo can become all league guys in the interior disruptive, if you can, like I said with Mississippi State, with Nathan Pickering and Crumity, if you can be disruptive on the interior, you have a chance. I'm telling you, from a guy that worked in college football, offensive coordinators out there, quarterbacks out there, they had to pick between, hey, tonight you're going to be having a guy flying around the edge around your from your blind side, or would you have a guy in your lap affecting the pocket from the interior? They're going to tell you, hey, I can step up in the pocket, climb the ladder, and avoid the pass rusher on the edge. If they're wreaking havoc on the inside of you, like Mason Smith and Makai Wingo, especially if Mason Smith comes back from that injury, the ACL injury he sustained in the first game last year against Florida State, if he can get back to himself, if you're a quarterback, believe me, you don't want to be having your offensive lineman sit in your lap. That affects you as a quarterback, your timing, your ability to get the ball out. Those two guys can be effective in the interior. Watch out for LSU. They also have the best wide receiver core in the room. I mean, guys like Malik Neighbors, Ryan Thomas, Kyron Lacey had a big spring game. I think they have a top 3 wide receiver unit in the country. And yes, sir, right now, best wide receiver room in the SEC. Also, Matt House, I mentioned they have both coordinators back. Defensive coordinator coming from the Kansas City Chiefs 2 years ago. Matt House's second season, he has all the answers to the test now. And so, like, last year it took him a little bit to figure out how to use Harold Perkins. And they finally let the guy that let the dog off his leash, and he started playing fast. They've had an entire offseason spring now. Again, having your quarterback and both your coordinators back is massive. It's massive. It's easy to make a case for LSU going 12-0. Worst case, I think 8-4 here. Hear me out. As weird as it sounds, I think maybe a little fat and happy, maybe a little content off last year. Not saying that's happening, but I think for the worst case scenario to happen, that would have to be in guys aren't working hard in the summer, not developing, taking that next step forward, just winning the SEC West is enough. So, no, I mean, you got to have that mentality of we want to go win the SEC. You take down Georgia, and we want to go get in the playoffs and have a chance to win the national championship. That's what LSU should be focusing on. But if they were to finish 8-4, which I think is worst case, I think a little bit of that fat and happy would have came in during the summer and they couldn't hit their ultimate goal. I think running backs would have to look like a mash unit. I think they have to lose some guys like Noah Cain, Josh Williams, John Emery. They just took Logan Diggs from LSU. I think they would have to have a lot of injuries in the backfield there, but they'd be real limited. And the secondary to me is LSU's major concern. Last year they went with a lot of veteran transfers. This year they're going really young. Worst case scenario here, DBU would have to be below average to bad. Wouldn't be totally unrealistic right now. I think it's a major issue for LSU right now. And it's going to be tested right out of the gate when they're playing LSU, when they're playing Florida State with the 2 monsters on the outside that they have, and then Jordan Travis being back as well. And then finally, I think there had to be a bunch of injuries across the line of scrimmage. Like I said, important to be so good up front. Y'all know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. They'd have to have some injuries on the offensive line, defensive line. But again, I think best case for LSU, 12-0. Worst case, 8-4 for the Tigers. And then Texas A&M. Best case, in my opinion, 10-2. I think this is if the Bobby Petrino, Jimbo Fisher marriage is working out to perfection. Connor Weidman, the quarterback, showed some flashes last year as a true freshman. If he takes that big step next year, people are expecting. I think guys on the outside would have to exceed expectations. Guys like I think who really could. Evan Stewart's a freak show. Anaya Smith, Moose Muhammad, those guys would have to take it to the next level. And then both the rushing attack excels on offense and defense. I mean, the defense was so bad against the run last year under first-year DJ Durkin. They will have to make an immediate improvement, a significant improvement. And going to my point right here, they have some talent in the interior defensive line. I'm telling you, guys like Walter Nolan, McKinley Jackson, guys like that, they can be a dominant interior duo. It's not crazy. It's not out of the realm. Now, worst case, I'm going to go 5-7 overall losing record, and Jimbo Fisher is definitely packing his bags. I mean, we all know why this would go bad. It's talked about in every national media. You talk about college football. A lot of people think this will go bad. I mean, for this to go bad, obviously the first thing, Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino aren't getting along, and we don't really know what we're doing on offense. Jimbo's still at the presser saying it's just not execution. I mean, how many times did we hear that last year where he was just saying the players are there, we're just not executing? We probably hear a lot of that. The offensive line under Steve Adazio would continue to not develop. They would have to for them to go 5-7, would have to not take the next step. DJ Durkin, again, terrible rush defense last year. It would have to not improve or stay about the same. And I think personally, I'm getting real specific here. I think they're going to have to drop that first Miami game for them to go 5-7. It's going to have to get real bad fast. Rats are jumping off this ship. Everybody sees it coming. To get real 5-7, a lot of guys would have to quit. Maybe you're even talking 4-8 at that point if it starts off real rough, where they lose their first two big games at Miami and Arkansas and Arlington, which is out of the realm. And then another one, just from knowing the program real well, the strength and conditioning program needs to take that next step. If they're struggling 5-6, 5-7, 4-8, even 6-6, 7-5, because I think 7-5 doesn't save Jimbo's job. It's got to start in the offseason. I talked about LSU getting fat and happy. A&M's got to set the culture, the standard in this summer. They got to bring – I know it's tougher than ever in college football now with bringing all these transfer portal guys, not a whole lot of familiarity, a lot of individualistic, independent contractors out there, people looking out for themselves, players, coaches, everybody. The strength and conditioning coach who goes by Red, he was there. He was an assistant when I was there. He needs to lock into that team and take this personally and be like, hey, this is my team here. I have to get over that mountain. We have to develop something here, not only from a strength conditioning, get our max numbers up on our deadlifts, our bench, whatever, our squats. He also needs to be like, hey, guys, you need to have the guy to your left and to your right's back. We're only going to get through all this schedule. I mean, A&M's got to really this summer take a us against the world mentality type approach. And if it goes south and they're not building that in the summer, yeah, it could definitely go 5-7. So that's why I think best case scenario, 10-2 for the Aggies. If everything's clicking, Jimbo and Bobby Petrino are living under the same roof, damn near roommates at that point. But also, if they're at each other's neck every day, it could be worst case 5-7. It could be 5-7. So that's where I have it right now in the SEC West right now. Best case, worst case scenario for everybody in the SEC West. It's really what we're going to cover right now for the SEC. Let's check a little bit before I get you out of here on that SEC, on the LSU-Arkansas game before we get out of here. Yep, Arkansas won. It looked like it came down to the wire a little bit. Arkansas got the 5-4 win. So LSU and Arkansas, we got a game, one of the two games already on the schedule for tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern first pitch. 3-seed LSU will take on 10-seed Texas A&M, and then Alabama will be for about 30, 45 minutes right after that tomorrow night. We'll face the loser of tonight's game between Vanderbilt and Florida. Again, we got the show recorded for Michael Lombardi. I will give that to you next week. It's a real good interview for you football junkies that love personnel, NFL draft, roster stuff. He's really good with culture stuff. This is the episode. This is the show for you. I really wanted to get him on live, but I think the recorded podcast episode is going to be just as good, in my opinion. SEC tournament through the weekend. Follow us on all social media platforms. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'll be posting stuff, updating you on the SEC tournament through the weekend. And then remember, Monday, Memorial Day is Selection Monday. I will announce the full field. I fully expect 10 SEC teams to be in. I think we'll have 7 teams hosting, representing the SEC. But again, it's Memorial Day weekend. Go out on the lake, be with your loved ones. Have a great overall Memorial Day weekend. We got postseason baseball now. I mean, we're in postseason right now, but we got postseason baseball next week. I will go over the best and worst case scenarios for each SEC East team next Thursday, break down the regional projections. This is our first week going live, guys. This episode was a little shorter. I mean, we're reaching about 35 minutes here, so that's about normal. But I'm fired up. I was telling my wife I am jacked. I love doing this live stuff. We're going to get guests here on live for you here. I want people to be more interactive on the chat. But again, I appreciate you joining us for this episode of Mock 10 Sports. You have a great Memorial Day weekend.